A billionaire's bet forced me to become his daughter. My name is Ethan Cole, and my life had been one long balancing act, teetering on the edge of survival. At 27, I was nothing special, just another guy struggling to make ends meet in the heart of New York City. With a business degree that had led me nowhere, and a pile of debt that seemed to grow faster than I could chip away at it, my dreams of making it big had long since faded into the dull reality of working dead-end jobs. The worst part, I had no safety net. My parents had passed when I was young, and I had no family to fall back on. The only thing keeping me sane was Emma, my girlfriend of 3 years. She was my rock, fiercely ambitious, headstrong, and always planning for the future. Unlike me, Emma had her life together. She worked in finance, was on track for a promotion, and had a vision for the life she wanted. And that vision didn't include a broke boyfriend struggling to pay rent. I knew she loved me, but I also knew she was losing patience. We'd had arguments before, about money, about my lack of direction, about the fact that I couldn't give her the stability she craved. I had promised her things would change, that I'd land a better job, that I'd finally get my act together. But deep down, I was running out of options. And when I found myself sitting in front of the man who would change my life forever, I had no idea just how much I would lose or gain. The billionaire's proposition. It started with a simple message, an invitation I couldn't refuse. I had been looking for jobs online, desperate for anything that would get me out of the financial hole I was sinking into, when an ad popped up on my screen. Exclusive business opportunity, high stakes, high reward, discretion required. It sounded like a scam. But with my rent overdue and my credit cards maxed out, I didn't have the luxury of being picky. So, against my better judgment, I applied. To my shock, I got a response the next day, an invitation to meet with Victor Langley, a billionaire investor with a reputation for eccentric business deals. Langley was a legend in the corporate world, a man who had turned failing companies into empires. But he was also known for his unusual bets, deals that didn't make sense to anyone but him. I didn't know what to expect when I walked into his office that day. His penthouse suite overlooked the city, a fortress of glass and steel, with a view so vast it made me feel insignificant. Victor Langley was waiting for me, seated behind a massive desk. He was in his 60s, his silver hair slicked back, his suit tailored to perfection. His piercing blue eyes studied me like a specimen under a microscope. "Ethan Cole," he said, his voice smooth and calculated. "Tell me, how far are you willing to go for a better life?" I expected a job offer. What I got instead was something far more twisted. Victor told me he was working on a social experiment, one that required someone willing to assume an entirely new identity. He needed someone who could disappear into a role completely, without question or hesitation. The catch: he wanted me to become his daughter. At first, I thought he was joking, but the longer I sat there, the more I realized he was dead serious. He needed an heir, he explained, but his estranged daughter had cut ties with him years ago. Rather than deal with legal battles or public scrutiny, he had decided to create the perfect daughter instead. In exchange for my total transformation, he would erase my debts, pay me a fortune, and set me up for life. It was an offer I should have refused. But I didn't, because in that moment, all I could think about was Emma, how she deserved better than the failure I had become. If I took this deal, I could finally give her the future she wanted. So, against every instinct screaming at me to run, I shook Victor Langley's hand. And that was the moment Ethan Cole ceased to exist. A secret I could never share. I didn't tell Emma the truth. How could I? Instead, I told her I had landed a high-paying job with a demanding travel schedule. I promised her that it would change everything, that soon we'd have the life we had always dreamed of. She was skeptical, but she wanted to believe me. I convinced myself that once it was over, once I had the money, I could go back to her. That I could erase the months I would spend living as someone else. But I was wrong, because the moment I stepped into Victor Langley's world, there was no going back. Victor wasted no time. Within days, I was flown to a secluded estate, where an entire team was waiting to begin my transformation. They called it reconstruction. First, there were the physical changes, hormones, laser treatments, minor surgeries to refine my features. They altered my jawline, softened my brow, reshaped my nose. I was given long, flowing extensions, my eyebrows meticulously reshaped, my voice trained to sound higher, more delicate. Then came the lessons: walking, speaking, behaving like a woman. I was taught to dress in elegant gowns, skirts, and heels, my wardrobe filled with the finest designer pieces. I became Evangeline Langley, Victor's long-lost daughter. And with each passing day, Ethan felt more like a ghost. The growing fear. I told myself it was temporary, that I could handle it. But as weeks turned into months, the reality of what I had done began to sink in. I wasn't just pretending to be someone else, I was becoming her. And the worst part, I wasn't sure if I could stop. Emma started asking questions. My excuses were wearing thin, and I could see the doubt in her eyes. Then, one night, she called me at a time when I wasn't expecting it. I was in the middle of a lesson in etiquette, dressed in a silk gown, my reflection in the mirror showing a woman I barely recognized. I answered, trying to sound normal. But Emma wasn't convinced. "You don't sound like yourself," she said. A chill ran down my spine. Because deep down I knew she was right, and I was terrified that soon she would discover the truth. And when she did, I would lose everything. The first morning as Evangeline Langley was the strangest of my life. I woke up in a bed that wasn't mine, a massive silk-sheeted four-poster in a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a palace. The room smelled of expensive perfume, fresh-cut flowers, and something softer, unfamiliar, something feminine. I sat up, groggy, my mind still adjusting to the reality of my situation. My movements felt foreign. My nails were longer, polished a soft pink. My skin felt smoother, almost too delicate. My hair, long, cascading waves of golden brown, tickled my bare shoulders. I reached up, fingers tracing the dainty gold necklace around my neck. For a moment, I had forgotten. Then I caught my reflection. The woman staring back at me was stunning. Delicate features, high cheekbones, plump lips, and piercing green eyes framed by thick, curled lashes. She was elegant, poised, and utterly unfamiliar. But she was me. A cold shiver ran through my body. What had I done? The door creaked open, and Isabel, my assigned transformation coach, entered with a practiced smile. She was a tall, raven-haired woman in her 40s, with the air of a strict governess. "Good morning, Evangeline," she greeted smoothly, setting down a tray of breakfast. Evangeline, not Ethan. The name sat heavily on my chest, pressing down like a weight I wasn't ready to carry. "Come," Isabel instructed. "We have a long day ahead of us." I wasn't given time to protest. The first lesson was walking. Isabel led me to a mirrored room where rows of high heels lined the walls. At her instruction, I slipped my feet into a pair of nude stilettos. The second my weight settled onto them, I nearly toppled over. "Posture," Isabel corrected sharply. "Grace, Evangeline. You must carry yourself with confidence." I wobbled forward, my reflection in the mirror a cruel reminder of how unnatural I looked. My movements were stiff, hesitant, a man playing dress-up. But Isabel was relentless. Hours passed. I tripped. I stumbled. My calves ached. Yet, bit by bit, I adapted. By the end of the lesson, I wasn't just walking in heels, I was gliding. The next step was clothing. A walk-in closet filled with gowns, skirts, and lingerie stretched before me like a forbidden fantasy. Isabel selected an outfit, a delicate blush-colored dress, cinched at the waist, with thin straps that left my shoulders bare. Slipping into it was strange. The fabric hugged my body in unfamiliar ways, accentuating curves I hadn't known I had. Then came makeup. Isabel guided my hands, teaching me the art of transformation. The swipe of mascara to elongate my lashes, the precise flick of eyeliner, the dusting of blush that made my cheeks glow. When we were finished, I hardly recognized myself. A thrill shot through me. For the first time, I didn't just look like Evangeline. I felt like her, and that realization was terrifying. I tried to push the emotions down, to remind myself that this was temporary. But that night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed. "Emma." I hesitated before answering. "Hey," I said, my voice softer than usual, a reflex from my training. There was silence on the other end. Then Emma spoke. "You sound different." Panic surged through me. "I'm just tired," I lied. "Long day at work." She didn't seem convinced. "You've been distant, Ethan." Is something going on? My heart pounded. If she knew, if she found out what I had become, she would never look at me the same way again. I promise everything's fine, I said, forcing a smile into my voice. This job is just demanding. A pause. Then Emma sighed. I just miss you, she murmured. I feel like I'm losing you. I swallowed hard, guilt clawing at my chest. You could never lose me, I whispered. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure if it was true. Because each day, Ethan Cole faded a little more, and Evangeline Langley took his place. The next week, Victor invited guests to dinner, powerful investors who needed to believe Evangeline was real. This was the first true test. The night of the event, I stood before a mirror, dressed in a floor-length emerald gown, my hair in cascading waves. The diamonds around my neck glittered under the soft lights. I was beautiful. But was I convincing? Victor entered, his sharp gaze assessing me. You look perfect, my dear. I nodded, though my hands trembled. Remember, he continued, stepping closer. Tonight, you are not pretending. You are Evangeline Langley. The words sent a chill down my spine. I followed him into the grand dining hall, where wealthy socialites and corporate elites were already mingling. The moment I stepped into the room, all eyes turned to me. I forced a smile, my training taking over. I walked gracefully, spoke softly, laughed when appropriate, and no one suspected a thing. Not until one of Victor's guests, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, tilted her head and murmured, You remind me of someone. My breath caught. I forced a chuckle. Do I? She studied me for a long moment before shaking her head. It's probably nothing. But my heart pounded, because if one person suspected, how long before others did? Emma's growing suspicion. That night, as I wiped off my makeup, my phone buzzed again. Emma. I hesitated, but then I answered. I need to see you, she said, her voice edged with something I couldn't place. Fear coiled in my stomach. I told you I'm really busy. You're lying to me, Ethan, she cut in. I can feel it. And if you don't tell me the truth, I'm coming to find out myself. The blood drained from my face. If Emma saw me now, if she found Evangeline instead of Ethan, it would all be over. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I begged Victor for a day off. I need to go back to my apartment, I lied. Just for a few hours. He eyed me. This life is behind you, Evangeline. Why go back? Because if I don't, everything will fall apart, I said desperately. To my relief, he relented. You have 4 hours. I rushed back to my old apartment, stripping off the gown, the wig, the jewelry, everything that made me Evangeline. But just as I was about to step out as Ethan, there was a knock on the door. I froze, and then Emma's voice. Ethan, I know you're in there. Open the door. My heart nearly stopped. I was trapped. My breath caught in my throat. Emma was right outside. I stood frozen in the middle of my apartment, still half-dressed as Evangeline, my silk robe barely covering the lace nightgown underneath. My wig sat on the dresser, and traces of makeup still clung to my skin. Ethan, Emma's voice was firm. I know you're in there. Open up. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. How much did she know? Had she seen something? I had seconds to decide. Quickly, I yanked open the dresser drawer and grabbed a towel, scrubbing at my face to remove any last traces of foundation and lipstick. My hands trembled as I pulled on a hoodie and sweatpants, stuffing my wig into a drawer before taking a deep breath. Then I opened the door. Emma stood there, arms crossed, eyes sharp. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. You're acting weird, she said, scanning the apartment. Her gaze lingered on the vanity where a makeup brush still sat. My stomach dropped. I forced a laugh, shutting the door behind her. What are you talking about? Emma's eyes narrowed. Ethan, I called you 3 times last night. You never answer that late. And when you did pick up, you sounded, she hesitated, different. My mouth went dry. She was too smart. You're imagining things, I said quickly, shoving my hands in my pockets. I told you work has been crazy. Her gaze flickered past me again, scanning the apartment. And then, she took a step toward the dresser. My pulse skyrocketed. Emma, I said, my voice edged with panic. Why are you really here? She hesitated, then turned back to me. I missed you, she admitted. I feel like you're keeping something from me, and I need to know what it is. I forced a smile, though my heart was hammering. There's nothing to know, I lied. But Emma wasn't convinced, and she wasn't leaving without answers. She started moving around my apartment, too close to my hidden secrets. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, seconds from tumbling over. Then Emma stopped. Her eyes locked onto something. One single strand of my Evangeline wig lay against my dark bedsheets, standing out like a flashing neon sign. My breath caught. Emma reached for it, lifting it between her fingers. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. Ethan, whose hair is this? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I had no answer, no excuse, because she already knew the truth. Silence stretched between us. Emma's fingers tightened around the golden strand. This isn't mine, she said, and it sure as hell isn't yours. I felt like the walls were closing in. Then, Emma took a step toward me. Who is she? Her voice was quiet but sharp. Are you seeing someone else? I blinked. She thought I was cheating. Of all the things I expected, this wasn't it. I should have just let her believe it. It would have been easier. But the lie wouldn't come. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just a game anymore. It wasn't pretend. I wasn't just playing a role. Evangeline was real. And that terrified me. I swallowed hard. Emma, it's not what you think. She folded her arms. Then what is it? I hesitated. Then, without thinking, I reached for the dresser drawer, the one holding the wig. Emma's eyes followed my hand. And when I pulled it open, revealing the carefully stored strands of golden blonde, she gasped. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Emma stared at the wig, then at me. Her face shifted from shock to realization, and then to something else. Something I couldn't read. Ethan! Her voice was barely above a whisper. I couldn't meet her eyes. My voice cracked. It's me. The room felt too small. The air too thick. She took a slow, hesitant step forward. I don't understand. I forced myself to look at her. It started as a bet, I admitted. A stupid, ridiculous bet. But then it became something more. Emma's lips parted slightly. More! I nodded, feeling the weight of my own confusion pressing down on me. I don't know who I am anymore, I whispered. And that was the truth. Emma stepped past me, slowly toward the mirror. She reached out and lifted the wig. Her fingers traced the strands. Then, she turned back to me. Show me. I froze. What? Emma's gaze was steady. Show me, she repeated. A chill ran through me. I should have refused. Should have ended this conversation. But something in me couldn't. Slowly, I stepped toward the mirror. My hands trembled as I took the wig from Emma's grasp. I hesitated, then, with a deep breath, placed it on my head. Emma said nothing. I reached for the vanity, picking up a tube of lipstick. My fingers felt numb as I swiped the soft red across my lips. My reflection blurred. Evangeline stared back at me. And when I turned to Emma, her face was unreadable. Say something, I whispered. Emma exhaled. Then, softly, she said, You're beautiful. My heart stopped. I didn't know what I expected. Anger, disgust, betrayal, but I never expected that. My lips parted, my pulse hammering. You don't hate me? I whispered. Emma shook her head slowly. No, she murmured. But I need to understand. She reached for my hand, her fingers gentle. This isn't just a bet anymore, is it? She asked. Tears burned at the back of my eyes. I shook my head. I don't think it ever was. Emma studied me for a long moment. Then, she did the last thing I expected. She picked up the makeup brush. And gently, she dusted blush onto my cheeks. My breath hitched. Her fingers traced my jawline, her touch light. If this is who you are, she said softly, then let me know the real you. I broke. The tears finally spilled over. And as Emma pulled me into her arms, I let go of Ethan completely. Because for the first time, Evangeline wasn't just a mask. She was me. The air between Emma and me was thick with unspoken words. I could feel my heart pounding as she pulled away slightly, her fingers still ghosting over my made-up face. Her gaze was steady, but there was something unreadable in her expression. This is real for you, isn't it? She finally said, her voice quiet. I swallowed hard. Yes. It was barely more than a whisper, but it felt like an earthquake inside me. Emma exhaled, stepping back as if she needed distance to process everything. I watched as she ran a hand through her hair, her mind clearly racing. And then, she looked at me with something that made my stomach twist. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I don't know what to do with this, Ethan. The name stung. She hadn't called me Evangeline. She hadn't even asked if I wanted her to. My throat tightened. Do you hate me? Emma's eyes snapped back to mine, wide with shock. What? No. Of course not. Then why did it feel like the ground beneath me was cracking open? She reached for my hand again, gripping it tightly. I just need time, she admitted. This is a lot. You're my boyfriend. You always have been. She let out a small, shaky laugh. And now I'm standing here looking at you, and I don't know if that's even true anymore. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest, because I didn't know either. A sudden, sharp knock at the door made us both jump. My stomach dropped. Emma whipped her head toward the sound. Were you expecting someone? I shook my head violently. No. Another knock, louder this time. And then, Ethan, open the door. I know you're in there. My blood ran cold. It was Victor. Emma shot me a confused look. Victor, she whispered. What does he want? I couldn't speak. My mouth had gone completely dry, because I knew exactly why he was here. And if Emma found out, everything would be over. The knocking turned into pounding. I won't ask again, Ethan. Victor's voice was dangerously calm. Let me in. Emma turned back to me, her expression shifting. Suspicion crept into her eyes. Ethan, she said slowly. What the hell is going on? Panic surged through me. I had seconds to decide. I could lie, or I could tell Emma everything. The bet, the transformation, the fact that Victor now owned my life. But before I could say a word, Emma reached for the door handle. Emma, wait! Too late. The door swung open. Victor stood in the doorway, his cold eyes immediately locking onto me. His gaze flickered over my appearance, the remnants of makeup, the slight curl of the blonde wig peeking from behind my ears. His lips curled into a slow, knowing smirk. And then he turned to Emma. So, he said smoothly, I see you finally met the real Ethan. Emma stiffened beside me. What? Victor stepped inside, completely unfazed by the tension crackling in the room. He adjusted his pristine suit, his movements effortless, like he was in control of everything. And maybe he was. Your boyfriend has been keeping secrets, Victor continued, his tone dripping with amusement. Isn't that right, Evangeline? Emma sucked in a sharp breath. I felt the world collapse around me. Victor had said it. Out loud. There was no taking it back. Emma turned to me, her eyes wide. Evangeline, she repeated, as if saying the name would make it less real. I couldn't breathe. Victor's smirk widened. Didn't tell her, did you? He let out a mocking sigh. What a shame. And here I thought you were finally embracing the role. Emma's hands trembled. What is he talking about, Ethan? Victor didn't wait for me to answer. I made a bet, he said, stepping closer. And your boyfriend lost. He gestured to me. The price? Becoming my daughter. Emma staggered back, as if she had been physically struck. She looked at me, horrified. Tell me he's lying. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Because he wasn't. Victor tilted his head, watching Emma with interest. You look shocked, he mused. But I'll be honest, this was always bigger than a bet. Your boyfriend didn't just lose a game. He turned back to me, his eyes sharp as daggers. He lost his identity. Emma took another step away from me, her entire body tense with disbelief. She turned to me, her voice barely above a whisper. Is that true? I felt like I was drowning. Victor folded his arms. Tell her, Evangeline. His voice was dangerously soft. Tell her who you really are now. I could feel Emma waiting for me to deny it, waiting for me to fight back. But I didn't. I couldn't, because deep down, I already knew the answer. Victor's voice was pure steel. You can either tell her the truth, he said, or I will. I inhaled sharply. I had seconds to choose. Tell Emma and risk losing her forever, or let Victor control the narrative and lose myself instead?